30 days ago I made a decision that my wife thought was either brilliant or the beginning of a midlife crisis. Possibly both. I was going to spend an entire month living like a millionaire. Not the Instagram version. Not the rented Lamborghini, bottle service, private jet fantasy that someone with a ring light and a camera is selling you from a studio apartment. The actual version. The version that researchers, behavioral economists, and wealth psychologists have documented when they study what people with genuine multi-generational wealth actually do with their time, their money, and their attention. Here's what made this interesting. I wasn't going to spend any more money than I normally spend on my $50,000 salary. Not a single extra dollar. Because here's the thing I suspected before I started and knew for certain by day 12. Most of what actually separates the way millionaires live from the way the rest of us live has nothing to do with spending more money. It has to do with spending money differently. Prioritizing differently. Thinking about time differently. Relating to stress and decisions and other people's opinions in a fundamentally different way. And most of it is completely free. My name is Money Sketcher, and I sketch out the financial patterns most people can't see until they're already inside them. If you've ever wondered whether the millionaire lifestyle is actually about the money or about something else entirely, subscribe right now. Because today I'm giving you 30 days of data and I'm not going to make it pretty. Quick note, I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice. This is a documented behavioral experiment with one subject, me, and 30 days of honest observation. Take it for what it is. Let's sketch it out. Before I tell you what I did, I need to tell you what I was working from. Because this wasn't random. I spent 3 weeks before the experiment reading everything I could find on how genuinely wealthy people actually behave. Not how they're portrayed. Not what they post. How they actually live based on longitudinal research, estate planning interviews, and wealth psychology studies. 3 findings shaped everything that followed. Finding 1, Thomas Stanley's research in the Millionaire Next Door found that the majority of American millionaires live in middle-class neighborhoods, drive ordinary cars, and are functionally indistinguishable from their neighbors in most external measures. The lifestyle of actual wealth is dramatically quieter than its cultural representation. Finding 2, a study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that wealthy individuals reported higher life satisfaction not primarily from spending more but from having more control over their time. The specific phrase the researchers used was time autonomy. The ability to decide what you do with your hours was the single strongest predictor of the well-being advantage that came with wealth. Finding 3, research from Harvard Business School found that high-net-worth individuals across multiple income brackets shared a consistent behavioral pattern around decisions. They made fewer decisions, but made each one more deliberately. They had simplified their lives aggressively to reduce what researchers call decision fatigue, preserving their best cognitive energy for the choices that actually mattered. These 3 findings gave me my experiment framework. Quiet wealth. Time autonomy. Deliberate decisions. 30 days. Same budget. Completely different operating system. The first thing I did was the thing that costs the least and delivers the most immediate discomfort. I audited my time. Not my spending. My time. Every hour for 7 days I tracked exactly what I did with my waking hours and classified each activity into one of 3 categories. Category 1, things that move my life forward. Category 2, things that maintain my current situation. Category 3, things that do neither. The results were genuinely embarrassing. On average I was spending approximately 4 hours a day in Category 3. Not relaxing in a restorative way. Not connecting with people I care about. Scrolling. Passively consuming content that I wouldn't remember an hour later. Saying yes to conversations and commitments that added nothing to my life because I didn't have a strong enough reason to say no. 4 hours a day. 28 hours a week. Over a year, That's more than 60 full days of waking life going into a category that produces nothing and costs nothing but is also worth nothing. Here's what I found in the research about how wealthy people relate to time. They treat it like money. They have a clear sense of what their time is worth and they make allocation decisions accordingly. Not in an aggressive way. Not in the way that makes people insufferable at parties. In a quiet, internal way that means they simply don't end up in the category 3 hours because the category 3 hours feel like spending money on nothing. So for week 1 I eliminated category 3. Not perfectly. But intentionally. And the space it created was startling. In that space I read 2 books I'd been meaning to read for 8 months. I had 3 long unhurried conversations with people I care about. I took 2 long walks without my phone. I slept 45 minutes more per night on average. None of this cost money. All of it felt like wealth. By week 2 I was ready to tackle the finding about decision fatigue. The research is clear and replicable. Every decision you make, even small ones, depletes the cognitive resources available for the next decision. Wealthy people across multiple studies have been found to simplify the low-stakes decisions in their lives aggressively, not because they're eccentric or lazy, but because they understand that their best thinking is a finite resource and they want to spend it on things that matter. So I ran a simplification experiment. I wore essentially the same rotation of 5 outfits for the entire month. Not for fashion reasons. To eliminate the morning decision. I ate from a simplified meal rotation instead of deciding what to cook each night. I batched all my administrative tasks, emails, errands, scheduling, into 2 defined windows each week instead of letting them bleed through every day. The experience was 2 things simultaneously. Mildly tedious and profoundly clarifying. The tedious part, the first few days of the simplified routine felt constraining. Like I'd voluntarily put guardrails on my life that shouldn't be there. The clarifying part, by day 10 of week 2, something had shifted. The cognitive energy that I'd been draining on inconsequential choices was now available for the things I actually cared about. I was writing better. Thinking more clearly. Making decisions about things that actually mattered with noticeably more patience and consideration. The research term for this is cognitive bandwidth. And the millionaire behavior pattern isn't about having more of it. It's about wasting less of it on things that don't deserve it. This was the week that produced the most uncomfortable data. And the most useful. For week 3 I focused on the social dimension of how wealthy people operate. The research suggests something counterintuitive. High net worth individuals are, on average, more selective about their social commitments than people at lower income levels. Not ruder. Not more isolated. More deliberate. They say no to more things, which means the things they say yes to receive their actual attention and energy rather than their depleted remainder. So I ran the same experiment. For 7 days I said no to every social commitment that I would have previously accepted out of obligation rather than genuine desire. Not unkindly. Not dramatically. Just honestly. No to the networking event I went to every year because I thought I should. No to the group chat conversation that consumed 90 minutes of my evening going nowhere. No to the invitation that I would have accepted because refusing felt awkward even though attending would leave me feeling vaguely resentful the whole time. The social fallout was minimal. Genuinely minimal. The catastrophe I'd been unconsciously afraid of simply didn't materialize. The people I said no to either didn't notice or accepted it without drama. And the people I said yes to got a version of me that was actually present. Actually engaged. Actually glad to be there. Here's what I noticed about the social math of this. When you're selective about your yes becomes worth more. The people who received my time that week felt it. The conversations were different. The connections were deeper. Not because I said anything different but because I wasn't carrying the weight of 20 other obligations I'd agreed to out of a vague social anxiety. Selective presence. It costs nothing. It delivers everything that money can't buy in a relationship. This is the week most people expected me to spend the video on. And it's the week I'm going to spend the least time on. Deliberately. Because the data from weeks 1 through 3 already told me what I needed to know. But I did run a spending audit in week 4. And here's what it revealed. Over the previous month I'd spent approximately the same number of dollars I always spent. Maybe slightly less. What was completely different was the intentionality behind every purchase. During the experiment I asked one question before every discretionary spend: does this purchase give me more control over my time or less? Not is this good for me generally. Not can I afford this. Specifically, does this give me more time autonomy or does it cost me time autonomy? The car payment on a vehicle I didn't need costs time autonomy because the monthly obligation requires more work hours to sustain. The dinner with someone who energizes me gives time autonomy because the relationship makes everything else more efficient. The subscription I renewed out of habit and used 3 times costs time autonomy. Cancelled. The hour of paid help on a task I hate and do badly gives time autonomy. Worth more than the dollar cost. When I ran that single question through every spending decision for 30 days, my spending didn't drop dramatically. But the satisfaction with my spending went up dramatically. I stopped having the quiet financial regret that most people feel at the end of a month when they look at their statement and can't quite account for what they bought or why they bought it. The millionaire spending pattern isn't about spending less. It's about spending with a clear answer to why. And the why, it turns out, is almost always about time. Here's the honest summary. Not the version that makes a tidy inspiring conclusion. The real version. The Millionaire Lifestyle, the actual research documented version, is available at almost any income level. The core behaviors that distinguish genuinely wealthy people from people who simply earn more are not primarily financial. They are attentional. They are about where you direct your hours, your decisions, your social energy, and your spending intention. None of that requires a $50,000 raise. But here's the part that's harder to say. Running this experiment for 30 days was genuinely difficult. Not because the behaviors were complicated. They're not. Because they require saying no to the low-resistance path constantly. Every day. Without external validation. Without anyone congratulating you on your simplified wardrobe or your deliberate social calendar or your time audit. The millionaire lifestyle, the real one, is invisible. It doesn't look like anything from the outside. The person living it looks exactly like everyone else. They're driving a sensible car. They're wearing ordinary clothes. They're not posting about their optimized decision framework on social media. They're just quietly getting more out of the same hours everyone else has. And compounding that advantage every single day. The experiment changed something in me that 30 days couldn't fully capture and that I'm still working out. But here's the single thing I'd tell you if I had to compress it into one sentence. The millionaire lifestyle isn't about having more. It's about wasting less. Less time. Less cognitive energy. Less social obligation. Less spending without intention. And the gap between that and where most people are isn't money. It's awareness. If this landed somewhere real for you, share it with one person you know who's spending 40 hours a week earning money and 4 hours a day in Category 3 spending it. I'm Money Sketcher. I'll see you in the next one.